Nobody move.
Nobody gets hurt.
I'm Nick G.
I'm Mike D.
And this is Good Cop, Bad Cop. I'd like to thank our sponsors today, Pop McCann Whiskey, smoothest drink in the land. Grab your bottle today at popsmcannwhiskey.com. Also like to thank Friends of Martina White. Visit votemartina.com for more information about the work Martina has been doing as state representative of Pennsylvania. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Beyond Creative. If you're ready to take your online presence to the next level, visit beyondocreative.com or call 267-362-WEB1 to discuss your project. And our title sponsor, AR Law, arjusticenow.com. We fight so you don't have to. Adams Renzi Law. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Morrow Flooring, hardwood, laminate, vinyl, tile, and carpet. You get military and first responders discount. That is Morrow Flooring. You can go to goodcopbadcoppodcast.com, click on his link for more details.
What's up, Mike D? We're back. We got another great episode lined up.
All right, I can't wait. Who do we got today?
We have Matthew Whiz Bang Buckley.
Wow, boy, it sounds like a real Irishman to me.
Yeah, right? He's
that name.
He's a true American hero. You're going to have to listen to find that one out. This man has been a startup for a small CEO, turned into a billion-dollar company, fighter jet pilot in Iraq, celebrated author, and most importantly, what we're here to talk about today is an advocate for the legalization of psychedelics to help PTSD with service members and first responders. So we'd like to welcome Whiz to the show.
Hi, Whiz. Before you get started, I'm going to have a little dispute here. Didn't we have one of our first episodes that we might not have aired yet where you said you were against drugs?
No, that's not true. I'm for it. I'm for the legalization of all drugs. Let's be clear.
We had it the first time we did this. Go ahead. Whiz, welcome aboard.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be here. And the things we're going to talk about today aren't drugs, right?
That's correct. Medicine.
Medicine.
You got it, man. God put stuff on this planet for us to heal. And we're not talking about dudes in a lab coat like Breaking Bad or Big Pharma. We're talking about stuff that the Creator put here for us to heal.
Amen.
And there we go.
We're on the same page right now. Let's see.
I mean, like you said, you're an open book, and it's a big book at that. So why don't we get started? How your journey started. We don't have to spend that much time on your past.
Well, tell us where you're from.
Where are you from?
Born.
I was born in South Jersey, one of six Irish Catholic kids, but my little sister and I were born down at the shore, Summers Point. We grew up in Margate.
9 months apart, like most Irish twins.
Yeah, Irish twins, yeah. But the upper four, my brother and three sisters, were born in South Philadelphia.
Oh, nice.
So I'm on Krosky Street is where my grandma used to live, and so I'm a South Philly, South Jersey guy, and went to St. Augustine Prep down there in South Jersey, and then we're a big Villanova family. My dad, my brother, my sisters went to Villanova, so big Villanova family. But I decided to break the mold and come down here to Florida, and broke my mom's heart not going to Villanova.
Where are you in Florida? Are you in a disclosable location, first of all?
Yeah, I'm down in God's waiting room, Boca Raton.
Which one? Miami?
Yeah, Boca Raton.
Okay.
Nice.
I love Boca.
Yeah, we call it God's waiting room.
Yes. Another one.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But no, so I was raised, down there on the Jersey Shore, service above self. I was taught, my parents were kind of, the John F. Kennedy type of Democrats, service above self. You love your country. We're in the best country in the world. So I was always instilled with some sort of service.
Was your dad in public service? Was he in the military?
No. When Vietnam was going on, he actually had 4 kids at the time. So, and I was on the way. So he didn't have to head over to Vietnam. But I think all my uncles on Krosky Street or in South Philly, I think I had like 20 uncles, and every one of them was essentially in the Army or all and Navy and all World War II guys. So typical story of a ton of uncles.
So what did Dad do for a living, if you don't mind me asking? Mine was a firefighter. We had 7 kids. Same thing. His father couldn't go to Vietnam because he had a bunch of kids that, thank God, that's what saved us and him.
Yeah, exactly. No, my dad worked for a law firm down in Atlantic City as an investigator.
It's almost like a private detective stuff.
That's exactly right. He was a
raised
private.
up that whole
He was licensed. Yeah, he was a licensed private detective in New Jersey. So absolutely.
That's interesting.
That's pretty cool. I'm sure he's had a lot of. Your father's still with us?
No, unfortunately, that's some of the trauma I healed. He dropped dead, getting on a treadmill in the garage after work one day. Going to work out. 65.
Oh,
He
man,
was
young.
strong as an ox, and he was dead before he hit the ground. He didn't even put his hands out because he broke his nose. So
Like Walsh.
going way too early.
My father, same thing. If you would have looked at him, he was 70 at the time. This is 6 years ago or 8 years ago. Run into him at Wawa. He says, for all you people, Wawa is the best store around. Yeah, Nick, I'm going to get checked out. I might have had like a stroke in the middle of the night. Something's off. And if you would have seen him, you would have thought he was like 60, 58, worked out all the time. Goes down and gets an MRI a couple of days later. And the tech comes down and says, yeah, Mr. Joyce, I should tell you this, but you have cancer everywhere. You need to go to University of Pennsylvania. And within 2 years, he was no longer with us, and lost both my parents within a few months in 2018. And that's, talking about trauma. My PTSD probably roared forward after that and spiraled downward. And it's been a tough time. So I'm very interested in everything that you're doing.
Well, I'm very fortunate. Just for the record, both of my parents are still alive, and I'm 63. So you can imagine they're at least, since they're
it's a blessing.
The 50. They're probably, my parents were in their 80s, and I'm very. So I've spent a lot of time in Florida as well. I have a place in Clearwater. I'm down on the East Coast constantly between all the friends I know and whatnot down there. And I have a lot of inroads in Boca as well. And, but I've chosen in the last several months to be closer to home as often as I can. So my parents are in their 80s, and who knows, right?
And it's amazing all this shit you put them through that they're still around. God bless them.
Every day I'm at my parents' house.
Jesus.
I don't want to say F you, but it's amazing. I'm at my parents' house every day right now. Like they're and if you don't have them, you might understand I don't understand the lacking, but I know the appreciation. Every day I'm over there saying hello. They're actually checking on me still, okay? And I'm supposed to be checking on them. So
that's what parents do.
Yeah.
So what's your introduction to the military? I guess it comes from your uncles.
Well, it's interesting because the oldest of my family, my brother, since we were kind of a lowerish middle class family in South Jersey, my parents were like, you need to go on the scholarship or go to the Naval Academy or have the military pay for your college, and that just wasn't wiping off on my brother, and it kind of rolled all the way down and hit me. But when I was growing up, just outside of Atlantic City in a town called Absecon, the kid that lived across the street from me, his dad was a fighter pilot in the Atlantic City, in the New Jersey Air National Guard that flew out of Atlantic City. And this guy was larger than life, man. He drove a Trans Am. He wore an orange flight suit, and he was an Eastern Airlines pilot. So this guy was just a piece of work, man.
Bringing in loads of cocaine in too, but that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Eastern Airlines is known for that, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I know you know all about it.
So I'll never forget one day, his son and I, who were best friends, were getting ready to go, walk up the hill to the bus stop. And he said, hey, when you guys get off the bus today at 3:00, don't move. You're to stay right there. And we're like, yes, sir. And we're like, why? It's up the hill. I had no clue. So we get off the bus, we follow orders at 3:00, and we're just standing at the top of this hill. And I'm just looking around, and I look across, the bay over towards Atlantic City and Brigantine, and I just see this black dot that's smoking. And before I could process it, this F-106 was literally on top of us and then pulled straight up into the vertical in full afterburner, blew me and him down the street, books everywhere. Asphalt and stones in my teeth and my hair.
That's great.
And I look up and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do.
That was the moment.
So that kind of sealed the deal. Yeah. So, he was obviously Air Guard and Air Force. They can land on 10,000-foot runways, and any idiot can do that. But in order to land aboard a ship at night in bad weather, low on fuel, you got to be a naval aviator. So I was kind of pulled to the Navy direction and went to school down here in Florida. was Navy ROTC in college, and then graduated with some good grades and selected aviation training for the Navy. Before we get into the Navy stuff, let me back up a little bit, because speaking of Villanova and my brother and sisters, my sister Monica, so my brother John and Marilyn and Monica were all at Villanova at the same time, in that order. So
what year was this?
80s, early 80s.
Okay.
So my brother and my two sisters were at a fraternity party out there, and my brother and my sister Marilyn said, "Hey, we're going to head back to campus, Monica. Do you want to come with us?" And she said, "Nope, I'll catch a ride with these folks." Well, 5 people in a Fiat with a drunk driver. Blew a stop sign, and my sister Monica was thrown from the car and broke her neck, and she was killed.
Damn.
So that was a hand grenade in the middle of my family. It was a horror. I'm going into high school, which was a tough age for a young kid, man.
It's a lot of
young
trauma
man anyway.
Yeah.
And she was right in the middle. She was in the 6 of us. She was the middle, and she was the glue. So that day I lost so much, but I also lost my parents. My dad, I used to play soccer and basketball at St. Augustine Prep, and I would miss the bus, and my dad would pick me up after school, and in between St. Augustine Prep and our home was a cemetery. And that guy stopped every day, and he got out of the car every day, and he cried at her grave.
For how many years?
That was tough.
Every day for the rest of his life?
Every day. Yeah.
That's terrible.
And I remember years later when I had kids, I remember we were living in Texas. I was flying F-18s out of Fort Worth Naval Air Station. And I remember sitting on the couch and watching my dad, watching my boys, and I looked at him, and I remember just saying, he knew what I was talking about, obviously, because I looked at him, I said, "Dad, how did you do it?" And he looked at me and he said, "I had you." He said, when they lowered Monica into the ground, I wanted to jump in there with her. Yeah. But I had you and I had to press forward. So, on a side note, which is kind of a big note, but I'll bring it up. I was also sexually abused as a child. So lost a sister to a drunk driver, sexually abused. And then you go into the military, right? So a lot of folks who, become first responders or go into the military, a lot of us are carrying we already got a pretty full backpack going into the military. So I flew fighters for 15 years for the United States Navy, and I lost 16 best friends, acquaintances, and in-betweens. Not one.
Is this through combat or
not
inflicted?
Not one combat loss.
Jeez.
Not one.
16. That's unbelievable.
Weather, stupidity,
drunk driving,
mechanical issues with jets, 3 suicides.
Yeah.
A groomsman in my wedding, Captain Eric Swenson, he flew F-18s for the Marine. Beautiful bride and 5 kids, put a bullet in his head. So childhood trauma, some pretty significant military trauma, and as you guys can probably guess, in the culture of naval aviation and fighter pilots, it's a hard drinking, hard charging culture. Tonight we drink, tomorrow we die.
Yeah. It's similar in the police department.
So
exactly.
I was out in a bar one night back in the late 80s, early 90s, and actually it was 90, 91, and I think the Giants had just won the championship or something like that. Anyway, and there's this guy, he's there constantly over drinking, cop, right? And you knew something was wrong, but you just didn't know. Like a lot of guys don't talk about it. And so when he dies, driving home drunk, he smashes into a wall and dies. I try to say to people, and you can both join in on this, that's suicide, right? I mean, the guy is doing constantly
self-harms,
knowing he can't make it home physically and get in the car and driving home. To me, I look at it as a guy who like a lot of people attempt suicide and they never complete it. This is what it is. To me, that's how I equate this. And I've done some studies with suicide, and I've worked with suicide patients, and I've been involved in preventing suicide throughout most of my adult life, I should say, when I grew up, whatever that was. But I recognize a lot of the signals because of the people around us that go disappear. All of a sudden, one day they're not there. And I just want to say this to you because you really broke my heart listening to some of this stuff already. I mean, I got tears coming out of my eyes. Your father probably died of a broken heart. Okay,
That's exactly what I said.
That's what I think. Okay,
We all said that. Yeah, Mike.
Oh, 100%.
yeah, nothing to do with his actual physicality, but it's a broken heart.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up about your the drinking with the cop. Up until a year and a half ago, the government numbers, Uncle Sam's numbers about veteran suicide was about 17 to 22 veterans take their lives every day.
Right.
Year and a half ago, a couple small, community colleges, right? Alabama and the University University of Alabama and Duke. So
North Carolina.
yeah. So they dug deep into Uncle Sam's veteran suicide numbers. And guess what they discovered? It ain't 17 to 22 a day. It's closer to 44 a day.
Oh my God.
Mike, to your point.
Right.
Because they went and, unlike Uncle Sam, who really doesn't give a shit, they just deal in Excel sheets.
16,000 a year.
Yeah. These two organizations went and talked to families and they're like, no. He drank himself to death. Or she overdosed.
Right.
So there's other ways Uncle Sam was only counting violent suicides. Staff sergeant goes into the VA parking lot and puts a bullet in his head.
Right.
So, and of course, as you guys know, Uncle Sam ain't going to have a press conference that day to go, hey, by the way, our suicide numbers have doubled and they haven't done shit. So that's why, 3 years ago, I stood up and said, you got to do something. We've got to do something. It's technically a mass shooting on a daily basis. I hate even talking like this, but God forbid, 44 children were being shot every day, not like once a year in a horror, but every day this country would flip the fuck out.
Right.
It's a slaughter every day.
More casualties than we took every year in the Iraq War, right?
Since 9/11, we've lost over 160,000 personnel to suicide. A fraction of that were taken in combat.
Right. Yeah. And
we lose the war at home. Well, we actually lose wars overseas right now, but that's a separate conversation. But we're losing the most important battle, which is the war at home.
So let me ask you what you have personally been doing. Okay, we know you're doing for yourself a lot, although I don't know, you haven't said it on the air yet. But what are you doing to bring awareness to it? And how can people also do it as well?
Yes. Oh, I'm doing this podcast, right? It's awareness. Okay. Whenever I'm out and about and I tell people the suicide numbers for veterans, you can see the color leave their face. They're like, because a lot of folks will go out of their way to say, hey, thank you for your service. I'm like, hey, that's great. Put a comma at the end of that and say, thank you for your service. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Do you need anything?
Right.
Just those little words could save a life. But so 3 years ago, currently I run my own, trading company. And 4 years ago, I printed money in the COVID crash as the market imploded and all these quote smart money guys on Wall Street were like, oh yeah, the market's bottoming today. And I'm like, no, it ain't. And it would keep going down. So I made a filthy amount of money. In I wrote a book called COVID Crash, From Panic to Profit. I bring that up because my dad, bless his soul, always told me, he's like, Matthew, you can't take it with you, son, right? You're not a pharaoh. They're not going to put this shit in your casket to take with you. So I'm like, you know what? And my buddy had killed him, my most recent suicide. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something about veteran suicide. I have zero clue what I'm going to do about it, but I'm going to do something because I can't stand this. So, what do you do? Help them write a resume, buy a suit. I was clueless as to help somebody to stop from killing themselves. And around that time, a close friend of mine came to me and said, hey, there's a group of Navy SEAL, special warfare guys that go down to Mexico and they do psychedelic-assisted therapy. And, there's a really cool group going in a couple weeks. Would you want to go? And I said, go to Mexico and do drugs with Navy SEALs? It sounds like a great weekend.
Hold on, let me stop you right there.
Sign me up.
What was your thought process about this whole psychedelics, drugs? Did you ever think in your life that you would be here? That would be one of your steps?
5 years ago, if I saw me on a podcast talking about psychedelics, I'd kick my own ass. There's no way in hell, but
Just making.
Yeah. This is exactly how God and the universe work, man, is because I was that guy. Could not, most of my life in the military and everything like that, drug tests and, I was a boozer and I was most likely an alcoholic. I don't need the labels. I was a drunk. So absolutely, the psychedelics thing was like, are you insane? But I got to be honest, at the time, it made absolute sense to me when they said that. They're like, these are special warfare dudes with traumatic brain injury. They're drunks. They're depressed. They got PTS and they're coming home completely cured. I'm like, that sounds like a load of shit. But, I was up for it, man. And the rest is history.
So that's you go down with these special operators to Mexico for the first time.
Yeah. So you ready for this? So the really cool group they had going that weekend was Marcus Luttrell. If you've read the book, if you've read the book Lone Survivor or watched the movie with Marky Mark, you know who Marcus Luttrell is. Jared Taylor, JT. If you drink Black Rifle Coffee, JT is one of the founders of Black Rifle Coffee. Another Navy SEAL who was a team guy with Marcus, his name's JJ. And then an NFL great, whose name is Robert Gallery. He was a 4-year All-American at Iowa and then played for the Raiders for about 8 years. Man. Big freaking dude. And he was suffering from some pretty significant CTE. So we, I flew into San Diego, right? Met these guys the day before. Because if you do it in San Diego, you're a felon. If you do it an hour south in Mexico, it'll save and change your life. So go figure. So we all get into a little convoy and I ended up being in the car with Robert, the football player. And I was sitting next to a dead iceberg. It was gray. It was this massive gray, still human, but he was a mess. And I'm going to fast forward to a year later real quick.
Okay.
My wife and I are walking around a fundraiser in San Diego and I get plowed into. I'm like, holy shit, am I going to get my ass kicked? And it was Robert. He was a different human being, completely different human being. Light. I mean,
from one trip.
One trip, man.
But wait. He just did one trip. That's it. He didn't continually medicate on
No. My God, man. We can dig into the experience.
Yeah.
We do not want to. Yeah. So we drove down to a place called the Mission Within, like I said, just south of San Diego. And we did a medicine called Ibogaine. So Iboga, Iboga, is the most powerful psychedelic on the planet. It's actually root bark from Gabon, Africa. And, some people actually think it could potentially be the tree of knowledge. There's about 13 alkaloids in it. In the West, you can pull out one of the alkaloids called Ibogaine, which is insanely effective for addiction and also for traumatic brain injuries because these medicines have neuroplasticity. Let me share I saw the brain scans of a Navy SEAL who, I won't say his name, dark, black, gray from explosions and stuff, right?
CTE.
3 months after the medicine, his brain scan was completely white. He called me and said, dude, the VA almost killed me. I'm like, what? He's like, from radiation poisoning. They kept redoing the scan because they're like, this isn't, the machine's broken. Your brain can't clear up this much. So anyway, to your point, Mike, about, one and done, we took the Ibogaine and it was without a doubt the most spiritual and life-changing experience of my then 52 years.
So
go ahead.
When you take the Ibogaine, because people listening are curious, I'm curious myself. Are you tripping? Are you high?
No.
Because I know
Zero.
It's different from ayahuasca, correct?
Absolutely, completely different. So folks, Ibogaine, it's called a waking dream. Ain't no tripping. We have these blackout eye shades on, right? You're wide awake. So eye shades on, complete movie. Eye shades up, there's the nurses, there's Marcus, there's JT next to me, eye shades back down. So there ain't no hallucinations, tripping. You're wide awake. It's called
purging. You're not getting sick.
No, well, you can't. Well, we can get into that. I didn't,
Yeah.
but we'll talk through some purging. But 12 to 14 hour most spiritual experience of my life. Let me share this one of these with you, because I lost my faith, man. I was an altar boy, 3 services a Sunday, the Catholic schools,
Hence the abuse there.
And then I lost my faith, right? I lost my sister, and on the medicine, I was absolutely reunited with God. You can use whatever word you choose to use. I choose to use the word God, but I'm hanging out, and my sister appears, and she was perfect. She was angelic. She was more beautiful than I ever remembered. And then my father appeared. And I can't remember the last time I saw my father smile. And he was smiling. And they were both, I was at peace. The first time I had felt peace.
That's what I want to hear.
In decades.
We're emotional now.
Yeah. Well, I feel it right now, because here's what happened. So I'm enjoying this moment with them, reunited with them. And they started to go away. Pixelate's a bad word, but they just started to drift away. And I called out. I was a horror. I'm like, don't go. Don't leave me again.
Damn.
And they came back, and they looked at me, and they smiled, and then they started to go away again, but I followed them this time. And they went into my daughter. They went into the trees. They went into the wind. They went into me. They never left. They're here with us right now on this podcast, and I was healed.
You're sitting in a chair with your buddies next to you, and you're feeling all this.
I'm lying on my back, and this is, I experienced all of this. It went through childhood trauma. God just kind of looked at me, and I was on my knees. I'm like, I'm a fucking drunk. I'm a shitty father. I'm a horrible husband. And God just looked at me, and he said, Matthew, I don't make imperfect things. Let me take that backpack off you right now. That's not your shit. You're healed. Get up and let me show you what we can do. And man, after that, it was just off to the races. I saw my future, which I'm actually living right now. It was the most incredible experience of my life. It was not fun. It wasn't recreational. To your point, Nick, I'm lying there having all this stuff, and Marcus is over there, and it sounds like somebody's hacking him in the calf with an axe. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Wow.
But the next day, let me fast forward. The next day, we're kind of at breakfast, and I'm looking at these guys, and everybody looks complete. They take pictures before and after. My eyes are blue. I look like I'm the kid on the beach in Margate, man. I'm a different human, and I'm like,
you can see your light now. When you first popped on the screen, and you can see you're a happy whole
there
person.
We go.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not something I'm imagining. You see a happy person.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I love hearing that, because it's a clean piece of paper, man. It's a Control-Alt-Delete. I'm not a guy that throws this sentence around too often in my life, but I do now. I was completely reborn. But the next morning, I'm looking at Marcus and JT, because they were purging. They were in it. And I remember laying there, because I'm an aviator, right? These are ground dudes. I'm like, I got to help these men. And you can barely move, man. You're like under 80 weighted blankets. And I remember God kind of gently, kind of move my face back and say, Matthew, they're getting exactly what they need. I got you, man. Let's talk. And I'm like, no. I'm like, God, no, I got to help these guys.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
And he's like, a little more, but still gentle. He's like, son, they're getting exactly what they need. Trust me. Let's go. And I was. But the next morning, I'm like, you guys good? And they're like, never better.
Wow.
And I was like, sounded like you were killing some demons up there. And they're like, yeah, we were. And they're gone.
5 it's amazing we can have this conversation today. And I believe Joe Rogan's one of the people that opened this door to society to be able to discuss this mainstream.
Yeah, right.
5-6 years ago, I would have sat here and done it.
I thought I did
Please.
this.
Yeah.
I would have thought you're full of shit and this is nonsense. Yeah, but the quality of person that are going through this, such as yourself, it's just,
well, I thought Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy too. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
so,
saying.
I mean, things have changed. Right? You get the analogy.
Yeah, the doors are opening.
You know, and we're much more open in our brain.
Yeah.
And it comes from life's experiences and life's disappointments that we become more open. You know.
Oh, yeah.
And I listened to Tate, and was it Andy?
Yeah, Andy Tate.
A lot of his, he makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can be a little less abrasive or whatever, but like Trump, less abrasive. But the fact that a lot of things that these people are saying are true, and they're manifesting themselves in front of us every day. Of course, I can't quote anything he says because I don't have that type of capacity. But one of the things I do is I live through experience. You described some things just with your experience with the blinders on.
Yeah.
When I was 22 or 23 years old, had a traumatic experience in my life. I lost a girlfriend. To me, that was traumatic, right? I mean, that's, you're young.
Trauma is trauma. We don't trauma shame. You don't trauma grade.
We break up, whatever. And I was on my bed. I was elevated from my bed, and Jesus Christ was in the room looking at me and saying, come. And I'm telling him, this is great. This is wonderful, but not right. That's, of course, I went downhill after that. But the point is that, and now, I'm not a hokey pokey.
I know.
No. So, and isn't it amazing how we have to preface everything we say with, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not crazy. I'm not a hokey pokey, but this is what happened to me.
I'm glad you said that. We can put on our tinfoil hats. Now, do you think the healthcare system is designed to keep us sick?
Oh, God, yes. The reason these medicines, not drugs, the reason these medicines are still Schedule I is because of big pharma. There's zero money in healing, right?
Again,
there ain't no profit. So, like I told you guys
some
before,
guy who's made a lot of money running whatever, taking businesses, and he went from 150 million to 3.2 billion in 3 years, correct?
Yeah.
In running one of your companies, and how'd you do that?
I just took what I learned as a naval officer and a fighter pilot and applied it to business. I mean, it's not rocket surgery.
I went in the wrong business.
I'd like to thank our sponsors today, Martina White. Friends of Martina White can visit votemartina.com for more information about the work Martina's been doing as a state representative in Pennsylvania. Let me tell you, Mike, she's a big supporter of police. She backs the blue. She's a proven fighter for families, women, everybody.
Is she a patriot? Is she America first?
Absolutely. She encompasses, the American spirit for sure. We have a big population of listeners in Northeast Philadelphia, Southeast Pennsylvania, which would be her area. So you can check her out.
Has she been in? I'm not familiar with the Philly district. Is she new to the scene, or is she, looking for re-election?
She'll be up for re-election in a couple years, but she's been around for a while. She has a proven track record.
Okay.
You can check her out. Her record really speaks for itself, especially when it comes to fighting for everyday citizens and backing the blue.
It's nice to have someone back in the blue. I mean, these officers are out there risking their lives every day, and with little pay and little appreciation in today's environment, it's been very difficult. And as you know, being a Philadelphia guy,
unfortunately, it's something that's not common. Should be. It used to be a time where both sides of the aisle agreed on law enforcement, and that's something that's completely lacking. But with Martina White, she steps up to the plate, always has our backs, and does what's right.
Great. Good luck with Martina.
Yeah, you can get more information at votemartina.com. I'd like to thank our title sponsor of the show, Adams Renzi Law, AR Law. They can be found at arjusticenow.com. And just to let you know, I know both of them personally. Christy, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, total sweetheart, absolute pit bull in the courtroom. And Nick Renzi, he's a South Philadelphia guy, true and true, neighborhood man. He's for the people. He helps people out down in South Philly, all around Philadelphia.
Their offices in South Philly itself?
Yes, their office in right around South Philly, Center City, right on the border.
Do they handle
there.
a lot of criminal cases?
They handle everything, absolutely.
Are they on call 24/7 for someone who might take a pinch somewhere?
Why, you might be taking a pinch.
Well, I mean,
you
never know. I mean, wherever you show up, you got to be ready.
Well, you can keep their card on you.
Well,
go to their website and call them up.
Will they give me a deal since they're sponsors of the show?
You might get a percentage off. I'll have to talk to her.
Okay. Yeah.
If you used them a few years ago, you might have not have gotten 14 years.
Well, that's another story.
Another story for another time.
That's right.
Again, AR Law, check them out. ARJusticeNow.com. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Beyond.O. In today's world, your business is practically invisible if you're not online. With so many options for marketing your business, it's easy to get confused. That's where Beyond.O Creative steps in. They have the expertise to help you with all of your marketing needs. Need a website that wows visitors? They'll build it. Want to reach more customers with Google Ads? They'll make it happen. They'll even manage your social media so you can focus on what you do best. Beyond.O Creative is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau and Google Premier Partner. They're the real deal. If you're ready to take your online presence to the next level, visit beyondocreative.com. That's BIONDOCREATIVE.com or call 267-362-WEB1, Web 1, to discuss your project now. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Morrow Flooring, hardwood, laminate, vinyl, tile, and carpet, military first responder discount. You know, Tommy, we had him as a guest on a podcast. You can get your flooring done by a real American hero.
Yeah, and he's on time and on budget.
Yes, he is. He will beat any price. Bring a quote, an estimate, whatever you have. Tommy will beat it. 100% guaranteed. You have our backing on that one.
And he'll be there himself.
Absolutely. You can get a real American hero do your flooring for you.
I was having a slice of pizza, and before we started, just before I came over here, and the pizzeria, by the way, good pizza. The food looks amazing. I'd like to go back there and eat. But I was thinking about how this happened for him. And one of the questions, and of course we're getting off target for a minute, because one thing about, you had this experience with the that was acid mushrooms,
Ibogaine.
Ibogaine.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
So you had this experience, and from that point forward, your life gets better, correct?
You know when my life started getting better? The second my buddy said, "Hey, do you want to go on this retreat?" As soon as I said, "You know what? Yeah, I'm in." Everything started shifting and everything started changing. Once I put that out there to the universe, said, "You know what? I want to clean my shit up." Things started changing and getting better. Absolutely.
Yep. And good. So now back to where that's important for this conversation. But what I was saying to myself, and I was trying to equate it to, we all, at some point, we utilize the people we know, okay? And we utilize them to our benefit and hopefully to mutual benefit, right? Because a one-way street never works for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here saying, in the pizza place, saying, now, for this person to be that successful, right? What was the transition? Whiz did what to become successful? He let go of the burdens of the past, right? When you said yes, your whole mindset changed.
Correct.
What came first? Your success in business or the Ibogaine treatment? Did the business come after?
No, the business, that was part of my trauma too, because I left, this could be a whole separate podcast. In the year 2000.
Oh, you have a lot.
In the year 2000, I left active duty to go be a rich airline pilot, but I won the lottery, because the lottery at the time was get off active duty and then go fly for the reserves, go fly a fighter jet on the weekends and go be a rich airline pilot. But unfortunately, the morning of September 11th was my first and last flight for American Airlines. I was packing.
That's your first flight.
I was packing the morning of September 11th, and my wife came in and said, "Hey, you better come look at the TV. Somebody hit the World Trade Center with an airplane." And I'm like, "I'm busy, woman. Probably bad weather and, small airplane." And she just gave me a look I'm like, okay. So I went out, TV room. I saw what you guys saw. Not a cloud in the sky in New York City.
Unbelievable.
And big smoking hole. And I'm like, I'm standing there going through my mental aviation checklist of how that could have happened. Boom.
Next one.
So you're in New York?
No, I'm in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, Texas.
Because my F-18 squadron was at Naval Air Station, Fort Worth, and I was flying for American Airlines where they're headquartered at DFW. So in 0.02 seconds, when I saw the second plane hit, I knew we were under attack.
Oh,
immediately.
Yeah, right.
So I still have it right here in my closet, man. I have my American Airlines uniform still in the plastic from the cleaners. I pushed that out of the way. I threw on my flight suit, my boots, didn't even tie them. I hopped in my old 89 Porsche and I did about 150 miles an hour out to Naval Air Station Fort Worth and got out there just as they closed it. And we went to a combat posture.
Right.
So me and another F-18 squadron mate made it out there before they closed it. And we called down to the chiefs and said, what do we got? We got 4 jets. I said, get 2 of them fully armed and fueled and ready to go. And about that time,
in America,
and about that time, so next door to us was an F-16 squadron, an Air Force Reserve F-16 squadron, and their general called over from their command post. He said, Whiz, what do you got? I'm like, it's me and Gruff. We got 2 Hornets. He's like, get over here. I got 4 F-16, 4 of my guys made it out here. Let's brief. So this was like Lexington and Concord, man. We're in the command post and you got 2 Navy guys and 4 F-16 guys, and we're briefing to get airborne and fly combat air patrol and shoot down airliners. And as we're briefing, the Pentagon gets hit. I mean, it's just, it was surreal. Now they get, the Air Force guys got money and they're used to doing this type of shit. So they got armed and they got airborne first, and Gruff, my buddy Gruff, and I taxied to the end of the runway fully armed and ready to go and sat there with our engines turning. But by the time those guys, ran out of fuel, all the airliners were landed. So we never got airborne. So I bring that, I bring that story up because a week later, I got a letter from American Airlines that said, dear crew member, you're furloughed. So I lost my airline job. I lost everything. So I applied myself to my trading, and that worked extremely well. So I bring it up because I popped up on the radar of a large trading firm in Chicago who hired me, and I went up there and did all these cool things. But here's part of the trauma. I went from being in a fighter squadron, kind of like a police precinct, where if you don't trust somebody with your life, they're gone. They're not a member of that organization anymore. So I go from a fighter squadron to fucking Wall Street, where I couldn't trust somebody to watch my wallet if I went to the bathroom. I mean, these guys would push their own mother in front of a bus for $1.
Yeah.
So in Chicago, I lost my fighter squadron guys, and I'm up here in dirt. I'm up here in money, and I felt like I had to take a shower 5 times a day because people were fucking gross. So guess what happened, man? Started hitting the fucking bottle, started hitting the drugs. So my cool business success was kind of in a darkness of funk. I knew how to motivate people. I knew how to execute. I knew how to do shit because that's, what I learned in the military. And that's how that company exploded. But it left me feeling even more hollow than ever before. So you can add that to my trauma too, was having to go from a fighter squadron to a Wall Street firm.
Oh yeah. You're ready to save the country. Now you're robbing everybody you know.
People I think the word trauma kind of gets it's not the correct connotation with people. They don't understand. Like you just said, just switching from that environment to the other is a trauma. People don't understand that. They think the trauma has to be, I was assaulted, I was hit with a hammer, I watched someone die in front of me. There's all different kinds of trauma people can go through. Everyone processes it differently. And there's a stigma attached to it. And I think what you're doing and what we're trying to do here, especially for first responders and military veterans, is to destigmatize your trauma. Your trauma is your trauma, and it is trauma. And
you nailed it, Nick. That's one of my sayings is trauma is trauma. So before I went to Mexico, I was trauma shaming myself or trauma grading. I'm like, I'm not going to go do psychedelics with Marcus Luttrell. I'm up at 35,000 feet in the air conditioning. I'm a wuss. My childhood trauma or whatever, I didn't see my buddy's head get blown off next to me. So my trauma sucks. Right. That's not fair. Right. Trauma is trauma. And if something's hurting you, it's hurting you. Here's a perfect example. When I got back from Mexico, I reached out to some F-18 sisters of mine, and I said, hey, here's what I'm doing in my foundation. Would you like to heal some trauma? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, great. And they're like, yeah, Whiz, it ain't from combat. It's from rape and sexual assault. So I kicked over this rock of MST, military sexual trauma. We've helped a good number of women over the past couple of years who were never near the front lines. But you expect on the front lines the enemy to try and kill you or hurt you. You don't expect your squadron mate to do it to you.
Right.
So we've helped, because some of these women were like, well, I was never in combat, so my trauma is not good. I'm like, you were raped, for Christ's sake, man. You deserve, that's almost as bad, but I don't want a trauma grade. So you nailed it, Nick. Trauma's trauma. And if it's hurting you, it's hurting you, and you deserve the chance to heal.
Okay. So we'll get back to your Ibogaine experience. The next day, what's life like for you after that?
So we call it a gray day, but the counselors will call it a discovery day. I mean, because you're awake. I told you that whole time. Yeah. So you take the medicine after a fire ceremony at about 8 at sunset. And then, I was up at, maybe 10 in the morning going down to move. And to Mike's point earlier, this is not recreational, man. I think one of the hardest decisions I made in my life was like at the 10-hour point, like rolling on my side, and it took an hour.
Jeez.
I mean, I think JT might have gotten up to go to the bathroom, but you're like a giraffe on roller skates, man. They got to help you.
You have shotguns there helping you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's nurses. I mean, you're hooked up to an EKG throughout the night because Ibogaine can lower your heart rate a little bit. There's 2 nurses there holding space. There's a cardiologist downstairs who's sleeping over just in case.
Yeah,
so it's half clinical, but also half kind of spiritual-ish, right? So the next day, you sleep, you cry, you laugh, you sleep some more, you share what was going on. So the next day is pretty powerful. I remember talking at that breakfast, and I'm like, I'm blown away. I'm just beside myself with everything I experienced and the healing. And I remember my guide kind of, talking to me. She's like, Whiz, this is awesome, but listen to me. 5%'s here and the medicine. 95% is the integration. What you do with this when you get home. And I'm going to tell you, she was wrong. I'd say it's 99 and 1. Because if you go home and you fall into your same habit patterns or what, if you don't, it's work, man.
Right.
You gotta put in the work. I got home. If I even looked at alcohol or smelled it, it made me dry heave. I couldn't even, it made me retch. That's how powerful Ibogaine is with addiction. 85% of heroin addicts never even look at the stuff again. They stop the study after 3 years. They're like, all right, we assume after 3 years of not touching heroin, they're going to go back.
So have you had a drink since?
So old Whiz, if I say I'm going to have a glass of wine with my steak, it would probably be about 2 bottles, maybe 3 if I'm in the mood.
Oh, yeah.
Now if I want to, I absolutely can have a glass of wine with my steak. Even having a glass of wine really doesn't do anything for me, but 99.9% of my drinking is done. Hell, I'd be opening a bottle of wine on a Wednesday night for shits and grins and polish the thing off. Yeah. It's gone. But most of the guys that I went with have never even looked at alcohol again, and they were full blown. They were in it, man. They were bad. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So the next day is, we call it a gray day. You journal. I always thought people who journaled were weird. I am a massive journaler now.
Where is your journal, by the way? You had a journal the other day.
I left it at home.
Exactly.
Again, everything you're saying, it's kind of funny and ironic because before you did this, you swore to God you would never do any of this stuff, and it was all bullshit, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I mean,
hippies do this stuff, man.
Yeah, weirdos. Yeah, we call them weirdos, but we can't call them weirdos now because apparently we're weirdos, right? They call us weirdos.
Normal people are weird.
And Nick, to your point earlier, this current, quote, psychedelic revolution, not that I got problems with hippies or anything like that, but maybe this time around, you got a Navy SEAL, a Marcus Luttrell, you got a Whiz, you got these folks, these first responders. We took in our first, for the past couple of years, we've been forced to go to Mexico and Costa Rica because, like I said, it's a federal crime in this country. But thank you, Oregon, and thank you, Colorado, because they've at least legalized these medicines at a state level. Right. So last October, we did our first healing retreat in Colorado, and one of the guys that sat with the medicine was one of the first dudes in the library at the Columbine massacre. And this guy, he looked like he was the first guy in the library at the Columbine massacre. And to this day, He's a different dude.
Was that a first responder?
Yeah, he was a firefighter paramedic, and he brought to our last retreat in June out in Colorado. He brought 3 of his firefighter buddies, and they are spreading the word and doing some insane healing. So the first responders that are reaching out are going through the roof too. I get emails, I get texts from active duty Leos, man, U.S. Marshals. There are a ton of men and women doing the medicine under the radar to heal their trauma, which is just incredible. So maybe this time around, since it's not hippies, wearing drug rubs and mala beads.
Anti-Vietnam War.
Badass fighter pilots and Navy SEALs doing this.
Right.
And something that I'd want to touch on, I haven't gone where you have yet, is with police officers and first responders. It's not talked about. PTSD is real. It's alive in the police department. It's an issue. It's overlooked. It's not discussed within the ranks. It's not talked about in hush. They have programs, EAD, employees assistance, programs, EAP, I guess. And, cops are suspect. They're worried that they're going to get taken off the street. They'll lose their job.
Of course.
The stigma, rumors, and it's all true. It happens. And we need to come up with a system to help our cops. And I believe that's one of the big issues facing today with law enforcement is we need more training, but we need the mental health aspect of this. And it'll never get better unless we recognize what's going on.
It's really cool, Nick, is a buddy of mine is a Boston police or city, whatever, just north of Boston. He's a police lieutenant, and he went through the MAPS MDMA protocol and healed a shitload of his trauma. His department supported it and everything like that. Could you imagine more compassionate and healed police officers showing up to a call as opposed to drunks or self-medicating or guys and gals with trauma? Could you imagine how policing could be reimagined?
Besides the trauma of it, and not taking anything away from the military, because everyone will talk about the military right away. Out of PTSD military, we don't talk about the cops. We deal with everyday negative stuff constantly.
Exactly.
I'm at everybody's house. I'm listening to how he hates her. He's cheating. I'm at dead bodies. I'm telling people, I'm sorry, your loved one, your son, your dad is dead.
Yep.
It eats us alive. It's every day. The normal person, I believe, experiences like 5 to 8 traumas in their life. Police officers over a 20-year career will experience over 800. And that's the traumas. Then now you're dealing with all the negative energy every day. And that's why cops drink. Yeah. They're burdened and weighed down so much. And I believe what you're doing will help take that away. As you said earlier, I love your analogy. Let me take that backpack off. Let me get you. And I believe we need to start doing this. If not, policing in America will never take that next step.
Nick, we have I have a buddy who did 20 years in the Marines, and then he went to like fire rescue down in Miami or something like that. He's like, dude, my Marine Corps trauma is a joke compared to what I saw with what people can do to children or to each other. He's like, it's a horror compared to my military.
I got called to a hospital, and there was a 6-month-old baby girl full of herpes. And I'm like, I'm not looking at that. And the doctor's like, you have to look at it. You have to look at it. And it killed me.
Jesus Christ.
It killed me. 6-month-old Miss Animal was raping this little baby. And now she is filled with a herpes outbreak.
Jesus Christ.
The evil in this world is unbelievable. And again, not comparing the military to cops. Trauma is trauma. It's all bad.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, military, when trauma hits, it's just going down.
Yeah.
But it's the constant pecking that every day, either it's, EMS, fire,
the negative shit.
There's nurses, emergency rooms. They all experience the same.
And then pile of life on top of that. I remember being 20 years old. I was a baby when I got hired. And, these 40-year-old husband and wife arguing. I'm there almost every other day. And I'm like, dude, I'm 20 years old. How do you want me to solve your matter problems?
Yeah.
I'm single. I've never had a
girlfriend.
girlfriend.
I used to say to myself, I'm 20.
Grow up.
I'm going to go to your house. Yeah. You got 3 kids. The husband works for a decent job. He comes home a little late with a couple old ones in him, and she's mad. Now I got to tell him to go in separate rooms, leave the house, stop beating your wife.
Yeah. Stop whoring around. Stop doing this.
Give him sex when he gets home. I got to tell him, I'm 21. It's still one little piece of hair shaving on my face.
Well, so your Ibogaine journey leads you to your next step, right?
So we
Helping
did
others.
Yeah, but we did 2 medicines. The next day, we did another medicine called 5-MeO-DMT, which is a longer story, but it was only a 10 to 15 minute experience, but it's
a longer story.
It makes the Ibogaine. Let me give you the cliff notes because maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah.
I flipped in the bed. I did a forward flip in the bed. I think maybe twice. Maybe I tried to flip into a pool when I was a kid growing up and I landed on my back both times.
You don't do that well.
As a 52-year-old male in Mexico, I flipped on the 5-MeO-DMT. So we can table that for another time, but that was...
But you're wishing alien time travel would just happen.
We're good till 3:00. Are you able to stay on till 3?
No, I think I have a 2:15.
Okay, no problem.
I can't leave you hanging like that. So 5-MeO-DMT it's a toad venom, right? So it's inhaled, and it's interesting because they did us one at a time, right? And we're at this big home overlooking the Pacific in Mexico, and they're doing the medicine that Sunday morning all the way up in the top floor, and they're putting the rest of us kind of in the bottom waiting for our turn. And I wondered why they kept us separate, and now I'll tell you why. So Marcus went first, and then I went up there, and the doctor's there, and my guide, and another Navy SEAL that was going to hold space for me was there, and I'm sitting on this bed looking out at the Pacific, beautiful view and day. It's church, right? Sunday morning. So I inhale this 5-MeO-DMT, and my eye shades are up on my forehead, and they tell you to hold it, and then you can kind of let it out, and they kind of slide the eye shades down, and they kind of gently lie you back into the bed. And as they kind of laid me back in the bed, there was no bed. I literally, it was the Millennium Falcon, man. I went from 0 to light speed. I went from 0 to nothing but white love and light and energy. I died. I know the folks at the foundation are like, stop saying that. Well, it was ego death. It was 1,000% ego death. They're like, don't tell people you died. I'm like, that, because I still, fly my fighter jet and stuff like that. You never want to hear a pilot say, I have no fear of death, but I have, I want to grow old and yell at kids to get off my lawn and type of shit. I don't want to go anywhere anytime soon, but I have zero fear of death because I know exactly what's going to happen, man. I became one with God, with Source. I was absolutely at peace. And this medicine answered a decades-old question for me. I always wondered if my sister Monica is bored. Like, are people in heaven looking at their watch going, where's everybody? This is getting old. Let's go here. There is absolutely no such thing as time. The only moment I was feeling was that moment, and it was forever, and it was perfect. And I remember God, or whatever word you want to choose, kind of looking at me going, or it didn't have a face. It was love, light, and energy. It was so peaceful.
That's fantastic.
And it was kind of, I got the message of, do you understand? Everything's okay. This is hell. Life is hell. This is purgatory, man. We got war, herpes on 6 months old. We got rape. We got crime. This is hell. I got to experience, I got to experience our natural state. Our natural state is a perfect soul full of love, man.
Yeah.
This fucking shell is from birth and bullies and drugs and
outside influences forcing us to not be who we are.
Yeah, man. So it ripped, I literally exploded through this shell into my natural state. And it was incredible. So, but I had an Apollo 13 moment. So after experiencing this and God kind of giving me the message, like, this is it, right? But you can't stay here, man. You got to go. But now you got it, right? I'm like, I got it.
Yeah.
I remember trying to come back into this imperfect shell And I think, as I kind of looked, man, there was some darkness and maybe some booze and some shame and regret still in this thing. And I remember this first yell. I don't remember the second one, but I remember yelling at the top of my lungs to try and force the bad out, right? And before, let me tell you, I'm telling you what I'm feeling, but let me tell you what they saw. So this lady, my guide, has been doing this for decades. She's like, I have never seen this. I've only read about it and heard it might happen. She told me later, she's like, you were in a V. You were in a V shape on the bed with your arms and legs moving in perfect symmetry. It's called transcendence. She's like, I've never seen somebody. So you were literally in the flow state. I'm like, you could not pay me $1 billion to sit in a V shape and figure out how to move my legs in perfect symmetry. So they told me this happened later. Obviously, I don't remember doing that, but they're like, after you were in that V shape moving in perfect symmetry, you got into the fetal position and yelled at the top of your lungs. I'm like, okay. And apparently I still needed some more because they said I yelled louder and longer. And before they even knew it, I went from the fetal position and flipped in the bed.
Ew.
So I remember.
Wish they recorded this.
Trust me. That's why we ask people now if, because of my experience, because she's like, I wish we had documented that because it would have been.
I mean, because that could be either if people fear, will give, as the end result, give them the freedom that you have from it, because it could be visibly traumatic, but when you come out the other side and go, it was the best experience of my life, to be like, I'm willing to risk certain things in order to experience.
So
that.
you fast, right? So in case you purge, but they had a bowl of fruit there. And I just remember coming out of this and looking at the three of them around the bed, and they're close, and they're all, first of all, they looked like they've seen a ghost. And second of all, they're tears streaming down their face. And I look at them and I go, you guys okay? And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fucking fantastic. I've never been better. And I sat there for a good 30 to 40 minutes and just cried. The happiest I've ever, don't tell my wife and kids this, tied for first with getting married and having my kids.
Yes.
But it was one of the happiest moments in my life. And it's funny because later at dinner, they kind of gave me a fuller debrief. They just wanted me to be in that moment, which I appreciated. But later at dinner, they're like, do you remember one of the first things you said? And I'm like, no. They're like, you just looked at us and you said freedom. You said, I'm free. This is freedom.
So the other guys you went down there were around you?
I'll tell you that in a second. And then I have a get out of jail free card for the rest of my life with my wife, because they said, here's the second thing you said. You said, I can't wait to tell Susie I love her forever because I finally know what forever feels like. Because that's exactly what I felt.
Yeah.
And my fiance, who that I've been in battles with for the last 6 years, said to me, say something nice about me today on your podcast. So wonderful statement. I'm going to adopt that and as mine.
Knock yourself out.
There you go, Tara.
Well, you have to experience what forever feels like.
I have to get there.
But I love the 5-MeO DMT will help you get there. So
okay.
Here's the funny part. After I collect, like I said, 30, 40 minutes, just the happiest I've ever been in my life. And they're like, okay. So I'm like, all right, I'm ready to, walk downstairs. So the guys who were left to go kind of snuck up from the bottom floor to the middle one. So they were right underneath where all they heard was me screaming like somebody's cutting my head off, and then a ruckus, a huge noise. So I'm coming down the stairs.
The guards are coming
down. Yes.
So
I come down the stairs and my guide was behind me because, my two buddies left to go on the couch, they look like they've seen a ghost. They're like looking at me. And I guess I come down the stairs with like a shit-eating grin on my face. I'm like, hey, and I guess Cynthia's behind me going like this to them, like, shh, don't say anything, no. And she like rushed me outside real quick and gave me some more fruit. She didn't want me to interact with them because I'm like, why are they looking like shit? She's like, no, let's just go over here.
She wanted you to spoil anything for them with any preconceived notions and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, she didn't want them to tell like, oh my God, what happened, Whiz? Jesus Christ, are you okay? It sounded like you were dying. I didn't need any of that. But later at dinner, we all kind of debriefed, and it was funny because after she dropped me off outside, she came back in to go upstairs and get ready for the next guy. And they're like, what the hell's going on up there? And she's like, he's like, JT's like, what the fuck was that screaming? And she goes, they were happy screams. And he's like, that sound too happy. But so to your point, Nick, so we did that medicine too. And then I got on an airplane, man, a different human being. I got home and I said, this is how I'm going to at least try to end veteran suicide.
Right.
So
you were reborn that day.
Absolutely reborn. I died. 52 years of shame, regret, trauma, depression, and alcohol was destroyed on a bed, on a mattress of a floor of a home in Mexico, man, with 4 other incredible human beings. And this dude you see before you is a different human, man, easily.
Well, Whiz, I appreciate you sharing the story.
This is I'm on quite the ride.
Told you it was good.
Yeah.
We definitely need to have you back. There's a lot more of the story to tell.
Yeah.
So we'll have you back soon. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Ruth.
You coming on. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Any go to nofallenheroes.com. Any first responders, veterans, listen to this, or family members. You all serve too. We give.
What's your book? Plug your book.
From sea level to sea level, little play on words there. I went from sea level to sea level. And then the other book was called COVID Crash. How we just absolutely printed money as the market went down. But yeah, even if you're a civilian and this, like we jokingly said a while ago, 5 years ago, if I heard me talking like this, I kicked my own ass. But let me say this, the medicine calls to you. What do I mean by that? If you listen to this podcast and you went, that sounds, it's calling to you. Right. If you listen to this podcast and you go, what the fuck was that? And that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The medicine is not calling to you. But if you're healing a little bit of the call, and if you're a first responder veteran or a family member, we'll provide healing grants. Or if you can self-pay, if you can join us on a retreat and you can pay your own way, man, you'll go right to the front of the
And how do they
line.
access that part of this?
So nofallenheroes.com on the top right of the website, it says grant request application. So you just click on that link. Real quick before I go, guys, let me share this story with you because we're going to help a new group of folks. You ready for this?
Should.
The last retreat in Colorado in June, he wasn't one of our people. He came with a group of veterans. This guy was on the 37th floor of the World Trade Center. Barely got out before it hit. He was dodging jumpers. Ever since that day, he's had a horrific speech impediment. Like 2 weeks before the retreat, we're all on a Zoom call getting to know each other, and everybody's going around introducing themselves. And when we get to this guy, it looked like he was choking on a razor blade. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? I don't know what's wrong with this guy. God bless him. At the ranch, and as part of the fire ceremony, he told us this 9/11 story. And again, that probably took about 20 minutes for him to tell because he just can't speak. I'm like, holy shit.
Kennedy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we take the medicine, or they take the medicine. I'm holding space, and there's Rangers there. There's firefighters from Denver. People are in it, man. I'm glad we had a lot of facilitators there. There was a lot of trauma going on. So I'm walking around, and his name's John. And I walk past John, and he kind of rolls over and grabs my pant leg, and he looks at me, different color eyes and just a different looking human. And he says to me, Whiz, can I have some fruit? Just like that, as clear as that. And I started crying. And all the other facilitators, everybody kind of stopped. And I looked at him, I said, John, I'll go get you some fruit, man. I'll be right back. Clear as day.
As that continued on?
So got him some fruit. And then I started helping some other guys. And then I noticed like an hour later, his head's in a fucking bucket, man. He is just purging. The next day, in our kind of sharing circle, it was about half back. But he looked at everybody and he said, now I know it's here. It's not here. And then he looked at us and he said, the smell. And we're all hanging. We're just listening. We're waiting. He looks at us and he goes, last night, I purged jet fuel, flesh, dirt,
Dust.
concrete, dust, and it's gone. He's like 23 years later, I can breathe. And the smell, he's like, I didn't know I've been carrying the smell and I purged it. And man, there wasn't a dry eye in that fucking place.
It's been powerful.
So I bring that up because that whole Sunday morning, he grabbed me. He's like, Whiz, I'm in all these 9/11, organizations and this and that and tunnel to these found, not to badmouth, I ain't badmouth any, but some of these foundations have they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And John looked at me and he said, Whiz, I'm in, not one person in 20 years has ever even mentioned this healing.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to be this guy. Can you help me? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll help you, man. Because when he was telling this story, we all kind of looked at each other because just about I'm a hell of a lot older than the veterans that were on that retreat, but just about every vet that was at that retreat with John joined the military because of 9/11.
Right.
Because he was on the 37th floor. So there was a red string that went through all of us.
Sure.
With John.
Yeah.
So he asked me, and I'm like, brother, I'll write the IRS and change our bylaws, veterans, first responders, their family, and 9/11 survivors, man.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's working on doing a dedicated 9/11 survivors retreat. It just blew me away. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me that not one person in these $100 million foundations has said, maybe we should look at a psychedelic-assisted therapy? So that's, I wanted to get that in there because if there are any 9/11 survivors listening and that the medicine or John's experience calls to you, shoot me an email, Whiz, WHIZ at nofallenheroes.com.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. I'll put you in touch with John and he can debrief you. But the 9/11 folks share a lot with and look at the 9/11, the guys at Ground Zero, the Port Authority, the firefighters, the cops.
Yep. I was there 3 days afterwards.
There you go. Exactly. And hell, the steel workers, the guys that were cutting beams.
I couldn't get out of prison. They wouldn't give they wouldn't give me a fast spot. I was on my way. Let me tell you.
But yeah, this is awesome, fellas. Anybody has any questions, Whiz at No Fallen Heroes, WHIZ at No Fallen Heroes, or go to nofallenheroes.com. And if you're a civilian and the medicine's calling to you, we do have a wingman program. I think it's like $1,500 or $2,000 to do treatment in Oregon. If you want to come on one of our retreats, we just ask if you can double up and we call it a wingman, bring a sponsor, a veteran, a first responder, or a family member for treatment. Yeah. And even if you can't afford to do our wingman program, still reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with one of the clinics directly and you can get healed. Because as we talked about today, trauma.
You're a hell of a guy, Whiz.
This is good stuff. Thank you.
You're a hell of a guy.
Really
Thank
good.
you.
I'm proud to be connected with this.
Told you, man.
Thank
This guy's rich.
This is wonderful.
Thank you for all you do, Whiz. And we're going to have you back soon.
Clap. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me. And thank you for your service too, as well. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys in the future.
Don't thank him for his service.
Yeah, we'll be down there soon.
There was bad service.
This episode is sponsored by AR Law, PA State Rep Martina White, Biondo Creative, Morrow Flooring, and Pops McCann Whiskey.